Good morning. Welcome to episode 31 of the Next Stage podcast for men with Rob Stout. Today's episode is the fifth in a series called What Really Matters. We're focusing on living intentionally, and Rob's special guest is Jonathan McGinley, who serves as a men's pastor at Timberline Church in Fort Collins, Colorado, and hosts the Intentional Man podcast. See today's show notes for more information about Jonathan, his ministry, and his podcast. The Next Stage is a production of Sherpa Unlimited Personal Coaching based in Denver, Colorado, on the web at sherpaunlimited.com/thenextstage. Please be sure to like, share, and subscribe to this podcast, and we'd appreciate a 5-star rating. So let's turn off the distractions, get a notepad and pen, and let's think about living more intentionally. Here's Rob Stout and special guest Jonathan McGinley.
You know, the story of Bonnie Ware is a really, really cool story. It's a fascinating story about a woman who worked with dying people in Australia and actually wrote a book called The Top 5 Regrets of the Dying. And in order, they were this. Number 1, I wish I'd had the courage to live a life true to myself, not just the life others expected of me. Number 2, I wish I had not worked so hard. Number 3, I wish I had the courage to express my feelings. Number 4, I wish I'd stayed in touch with my friends. And number 5, I wish I had let myself be happier. Wow. I'd like to welcome you to the Next Stage. This is episode 31, and I'm super excited to have Jonathan McGinley with us. We are in a series called What Really Matters. And Jonathan and I have known each other for probably, I think, 4 years. And Jonathan is a really good man. I have a high degree of respect for him, and he is several things. Number 1, he is an all-around great guy, but he owns a company called The Intentional Man. He works on a podcast, and I've been on his podcast as well. It's called The Intentional Man Podcast. And he is the director of men's ministry at Timberline Church, which I'm going to be speaking at tomorrow morning.
Yes, very excited about that.
Super excited. So, Jonathan, welcome to the Next Stage. It's your first time here. Hopefully
First time here. Yeah, I'm excited to be here. This is fun. I got to interview you, and that was a great episode, so I'm excited for round 2.
Well, we're good together. You know, we're kind of, you're the pretty one, and I'm whatever I am.
You're the wise one, yeah.
Well, hey, listen, give me some thoughts around the top 5 regrets of someone who is dying and what your reflections are on what Bonnie had to say.
For sure. One of the main things that strikes me when you read these 5 is that 4 of them, and I could argue even 5, are all regrets of omission. So they're regrets of things that people didn't do in their life versus regrets of what people did do. Okay. So a lot of times, I think it's 8 out of 10 people, when you ask them what they regret in their life, they say, it's something that I didn't do. I wish I had the courage to live a life true to myself, right? I wish I had let myself be happier. These are things that they wish they had done that they didn't do. And the one that's not, they said, I wish I hadn't worked so hard. Mm-hmm. To me, a lot of times that's translated in my head as, I wish I would have spent more time on relationships or doing the things that I enjoyed doing. So to me, it shows a lot that a lot of these people are getting to the end of their life and they're saying, man, there's a lot that I did not do. And that's what I regret. And so to me, what stands out about that is, you know, there's a gap between what we want our life to be about and what ends up actually happening.
Right.
And so for me, that gap, how you kind of bridge that gap is with intentional living. Mm-hmm. And so that's why I kind of started Intentional Man, and why I'm so passionate about it, is helping people live each day with intentionality so they can get to the end of their life and really not have these regrets of omission or the things they wish they did.
The series is called What Really Matters. And so why are you doing what you're doing? The Intentional Man, great title, great thing, but what is that about?
I just have a huge passion to see men truly live intentionally, throw off passivity, and build a life of significance. My personal mission statement literally is to inspire and equip men to overcome passivity and build a life of generational significance. And I just feel like that's really important because there's been a lot of times in my life, it's a constant battle for us as men especially to kind of fall in these ruts of passivity or apathy, where it just feels like you're kind of on cruise control in life. You're kind of going through the motions, coasting through each day, kind of reacting to what's thrown at you. And it's really easy when you do that to then just get caught up where you're 5 years down the line and you look back and you said, man, I didn't do what I wanted to do. I didn't treat people the way I wanted to treat them. I didn't build what I set out to build. I didn't pursue my dreams. And so it's just really important to me, for myself, to live a life to my full potential and to steward what God's given me. And we only get one life to live, so I want to live it well. And then I'm just very passionate about helping others do the same. That just matters a lot to me. So...
And more than that, there are some really good pillars to what you're doing.
Yeah.
I mean, the four things that you have built the Intentional Man on, walk us through those. I mean, those are meaty. Because a lot of people are like, I'm manifesting greatness.
Yeah.
Oh, big deal. What does that mean anyway? But this means something. It's very concrete to you.
Yeah, so like I said, I think, our lives are all writing a story. What you do every day, your thoughts, your actions, your words are kind of building the story of your life. And so if you want to get to the end of your life and be really proud of the story that your life wrote, you got to be intentional on each and every day. You got to make the most of the day. And so with Intentional Man, I have 4 habits of intentional living that I kind of really dig deep and help people do. And so we can go as deep in any of them, but I'll give you the 4 here real quick. So the first is extreme clarity. So you have to know who you are, where you're going, what's important to you in order to live intentionally. The next is kingdom focus, actually having that, for me as a believer and equipping men that are believers, it's important that we're building the kingdom, God's kingdom, not ours, and throwing aside distractions and keeping focused on what really matters. And then consistent action. So this is one of the biggest ones when we're talking about getting rid of passivity, is we have to take action. Right. You can't just leave things with your good intentions. You actually have to take action for it to matter. And then the last is daily congruency. And what that means to me is just that your actions, your words are in alignment with the man that you want to be. So that each day I'm actually living in accordance to my values, to what I say is important to me, that if you looked at my life, that you would know that this is what this guy is about, and that would match what I tell you my life should be about. So those are kind of the 4 pillars that Intentional Man is built on. These are the 4 habits that I really help men try to create. And I believe if you do that you're living a highly intentional life.
I can't argue. I mean, you look at each one of those, having clarity to know where you're about. But kingdom focus, a lot of men who listen to this are not men of faith, right?
Yeah, sure.
So boiling that down into, both of us are Christ followers. Somebody that is just about themselves, whether they're a believer or whether they're not. You've got people who are internally focused, but you're saying, hey, outwardly focused life.
Yeah.
And mostly living for things that matter, not just for now, but for eternity.
Yeah, for sure.
So you've got that. You've got consistent action, and then daily congruency. And so taking a bit of a turn here.
Yeah.
And this is an old guy statement, so I'm just going to say it. You are a younger-ish man, okay? How did you get to where you're at? There's a story there that is very significant, because I think it would be easy. Paul tells Timothy, let nobody despise your youth, right? And you're like, hey, not that young. You're not. But for somebody to look and just go, oh, yeah, that sounds pretty pithy, BS, because there's a story there. Can you share with us a little bit how you got to that with your life?
Yeah, definitely. Yep, would love to. Kind of this, men's coaching, this kind of work wasn't on my radar at all. So
what was? First,
my biggest passion has always been music, playing drums. That was kind of the biggest hobby dream that I had. But even there's a story of that was the dream, but things happened where I was not pursuing it to what I really wanted to. But in 2019, so I had been married for 5 years. I got married when I was 23 years old. Had a great first few years of marriage, was going really well. I thought everything was great. Year 5, things kind of started to feel like they were, maybe we were just missing on a few fronts. And yeah, there's a whole big story behind this. I'll kind of give you the quick version. We can dive into it. But
sure.
End of 2019, we ended up going through a separation. And in that time, pretty much all I could do at the time was work on myself. And there wasn't a whole lot I could control in what was happening. So luckily I had kind of a moment where I was just hanging out with God in Estes Park, and I was kind of just thinking about the situation. This was right at the beginning.
That's where God lives, by the way.
Yeah, in the mountains. Park. Exactly. Yeah, agreed. And I felt like I had two paths in this moment. Say I could play the victim, and I could feel bad for myself. I could try to self-medicate with alcohol or whatever else it was. It felt like I had an excuse to do that because I'm going through this incredibly painful situation. So that was one option. You can play the victim, blame others, do things to try to make yourself feel better. Or you can use this time to grow as much as you possibly can as a man, as a person, work on yourself, come back as good as you possibly can. Mm-hmm. And when you kind of when I was able to step back and really think of those two options, luckily, and I, as a believer, I feel like this was God leading me, but it was this is the clear best option for at the end of this thing, either self-medicating or whatever. I knew I could just kind of see in that moment, that's not going to be the best thing. Not really easy to do. That's why I feel like it was such an amazing moment to kind of be able to look back and say, okay, I'm going to choose this option. So what I did, I just really committed myself to personal growth. For the first time, really, mostly in my life, I grew up playing sports, and so I knew to practice sports and things, but I wasn't reading books at all, didn't have any mentors, wasn't really having that deep of conversations with other men. Mm-hmm. And so that's what I decided to do at that moment. I said, I got to get great people around me. First of all, I can't do this alone. And so I had 3 guys, older men in my life, that I just approached and said, hey, this is what's going on in my life. Can you please help? And they were all amazing guys. I owe so much to them. Met with each one of them once a week separately. Wow. And just did life. And, one of them was more spiritual. One was more on some personal development or goal setting and things. But they just really helped me. Then I had my friends. I sat down with them and I said, hey, guys, we got to do life together. Right. It's so easy as guys to just be very surface level, to only talk about sports or business or whatever, and not really talk about what's going on life-wise. So I was like, hey, well, let's commit to actually just sharing what's going on, pushing each other, holding each other accountable, pushing each other to be better men. Yeah. So that was another piece. And then the other one, like I mentioned, I started devouring books, which I wasn't a reader at all at the time. And I would honestly, I was one of those guys who would say, why would you read if you could just go watch the movie or whatever? I would make fun of readers.
I had a friend one time who said, I'm not reading a book unless it makes me money.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
It's that's a good reason, but yeah, there's more.
Exactly. And I wasn't a reader until that point. And I was like, well, I got to be as good as I can. So I started reading books on relationships. I started reading books on just personal development, on mindset, on all the areas where I thought I was weak and I could grow. I was reading a book a week, just devouring them, and then meeting with mentors, meeting with friends. And it's just crazy the amount of growth that I had as an individual in that separation time.
How long was that?
So it was about 5 months. It was November to April of the next year. So about 5 months. This was right when COVID hit. So this was
fun times.
COVID was even the least of my worries at the time. I was trying to save a marriage. So it's kind of a interesting time for me.
And how old were you when this happened? You were in your late 20s?
I was 28. Yeah, 28 years old. So that's the first time in my life where I feel like I got very highly intentional with my life. Because a lot of us think that growth is automatic. If I were to ask you, do you think you're going to have more money in 5 years or less? You'd probably say more money.
Well, the course I just took with leaving the corporate world, I don't know. Well, the jury's out on that.
Most people, if I were to ask you, hey, do you think you're going to have deeper relationships or worse? You're probably going to say deeper.
Sure.
The point is, a lot of us think that life is going to just get better.
Right.
And we assume it's going to happen. But then what's the actual plan or strategy to make that happen? We usually don't have one. So if this is what you think is going to happen, but it's just a hope, and you don't have a plan, and you don't take daily action, you're not intentional on a daily basis, we can't assume that growth is going to automatically happen. Growth isn't automatic. Growth happens when you get intentional. You get highly intentional. And that was the first time, kind of by accident, thrown into the fire. Took a broken relationship for me to start getting really intentional about my growth. But then I just started to see how it was changing my life, changing a lot of guys' lives that I was just doing life with. And so that was the first time in my life where I came out of that season where I was like, I just need to keep this going. And about a year later, I felt like, what if I did this for a living? Right. Can I help guys with this? This is what I'm very passionate about helping people with. And that's kind of when I started Intentional Man and got going in that path. So
it really is amazing, Jonathan. the holes that we fall into. I'm searching for the word here, but those dark night of the soul kind of things, the way they, if you allow them to form you, there's the bitter or better. But let's face it, you go through bitter and then choose better, or better finds you in that, Yeah. And so I'm sure as a 28-year-old man, that was incredibly painful. Something you had never projected or ever thought was going to hit your life. And yet you found something there to bring into your life. And I'm the same way. Yeah. Went through a really dark season and found, people are like, where did you find God? Oh, I found him at the bottom of a bottle. People are like, oh, like I really did. I was like, I cannot, because I did go down that path of medication. Yeah. I found him when I was like, and this isn't doing anything. Mm-hmm. This is making it worse, and yet going through a season like that and coming out of it and going, wow, and finding a new passion as well. That's really cool. Yeah, for sure. That's really cool. Well, and there's a quote that I heard. I think I heard it from Rory Vaden. He was the first guy I think I heard it from. But he said that you're best equipped to help the person that you once were. Yeah. And for me, when I look back on that, I was pretty passive. Mm-hmm. Before that separation, I was coasting, man. Mm-hmm. And not even purposefully, wasn't even aware of it really. I was trying to love people well, serve people well, be happy, like enjoy my life. But I was just on cruise control. Right. I was in a job I didn't love. Felt like I wasn't pursuing my passions, but just kind of getting up, going through the motions, doing the same thing over and over and over. Mm-hmm. And that was, unfortunately, it took a, separation season, a broken relationship to kind of wake me up to realize I was just coasting. Right. But that's why I'm passionate about this, man, because it's so easy to fall into that. You might not even know that you're in that. And so I want to help guys, my business is just for men, but I want to help everybody be like, we have one life to live, and I don't want to coast through it. Right. I want to be intentional and actually build something I'm really proud of and invest in the things that I feel like I'm supposed to invest in. And so that's why I'm passionate about this, man, because I was that guy who was very passive, and I still oftentimes fall back into that. Tend to it. It's kind of a tendency, but it is interesting how we, I'm going to read a little bit into your life. You did things the right way, good guy, good family, follower of Christ, and you just kind of expect things to go along. And my story is that way. Yeah, I was like, I did things right. I didn't know some of the things. One thing that hit me when I was 26 maybe, was we had a daughter born with disabilities. Mm. We had no idea until literally the moment she was born that we were part of that club. Yeah. I didn't even know. I thought people did something wrong. Yeah. Seriously. I was so arrogant, ignorant, maybe. Yeah, ignorant. Just ignorant. But it really is interesting just going, wow, okay, so this met me. I didn't ask for this, but God, would you do something to me so that you can do something in me, so that you can do something through me? Yeah. And not writing the end of the story either, right? Like you don't know where it's heading. Yeah. So, man, thanks. I think that's, I think that's a good point to make, that I truly feel in that season when I look back, I was doing the best with what I knew at the time, and there's just lessons that I just didn't know yet. Right. And there's just a big difference between kind of reacting to everything that's thrown at you, and that's more what I was doing, because I'm usually kind of more of a peacemaker type guy. Mm-hmm. So I kind of like to I don't like to stir the pot. When things kind of happen, I would just react and try to handle the situation, but I wasn't being proactive. And I think that's the big difference that I see now. Like men, if we're talking about being a husband, if you want a relationship that lasts for an entire life, if that's your vision, you get a clear vision, I want a great marriage for my entire life, then what are the things that you actually have to do
intentionally do that are going to help develop that.
Right.
And I think we just assume like if we just are nice or like just serve decently that we're going to have this lasting relationship. But now I'm like, I wish I would have been like, we should go to counseling every now and then, or we should like do devotionals together. We should go to some marriage retreats. We should make sure we have a date night once a week. And even on that date night, I should be ready to ask good, deep questions and not just keep it surface level. Those are the things for me now. That's intentional living versus kind of just reacting to the things around you, where I'm like, if this is what I truly want my life to be, if this is the vision that I have, what are the steps that I need to take to get there? And if you don't know, find a couple who's done it for 40 years and ask them what are the habits, and then put those in place. Those are the things that I was missing, where I look back and I'm like, okay, that's where I could be a lot better. And so I want to carry that into my life. I want to be proactive instead of reactive.
Yeah. You look at a guy in the gym and you're like, man, this guy's ripped. Well, he didn't get that way from sitting on the couch.
Right.
You look at a guy with a good career. He didn't get that way just luckily.
Right.
He may have, but more than likely not. You look at somebody with a good relationship, godly character, whatever. It doesn't happen just passively.
Right. Yeah.
So, yeah. That's really good stuff. Really, really good stuff. And quickly on the a couple things, and these are all going to be in the show notes, by the way. Jonathan's podcast, his business, his what he's doing with the Ascent Project, Timberline, all of that. Great. Tell us about this band of brothers that formed.
Yes.
That were your peers, because you had older men with you in that season, but then you built an intentional community of men, right?
Yes. Yeah, this is one of my favorite stories to share, because it just is cool how it all kind of came together. So went through that season of separation, ended up, unfortunately, the marriage ended in April 2020. So I was just coming out of that. Probably the most broken I've ever been, but also growing in so many ways. And I had been doing life with a few guys, and I just got 7 of my best friends together. And I said, guys, like, we just need to do life with each other, for each other, be there. It's too easy to do life on our own, especially as guys. We like to think that we can just do everything on our own. And I realized that didn't work. So I said, let's just do life together. So what this looked like for us, we were like, well, let's do a workout once a week in a park. This was good weather. This was during COVID. So this is all you could do. We were like, we'll go outside. And so I would just organize some sort of workout that we would do. And we were planning on hiking a 14er, which is a 14,000 foot mountain in Colorado.
For you flatlanders out there, they're really high and really hard to climb.
The tallest mountains in Colorado. We were like, at the end of the summer, we'll do one of those together. So let's just work out, get in good shape. And then we were reading this kind of devotional together, and then we would text each other every morning. Hey, did you get in the Word? Did you spend time with God? What did you learn? What's going on? Then everybody set goals for their lives, for their relationships, whatever it was, and we were holding each other accountable to those. So this was for the first time very organically. We were just like, let's just do life. And this is just what I needed at the time coming out of this. I said, guys, I just need to do life with you. And what was cool was, man, our lives changed drastically. All these guys that were married, their wives were coming up to us like, what's going on with our guys? Like, we can see such a big difference.
They're actually worth a rip. I mean, come on, man.
I know, but it was cool. It was like everybody was noticing. There was a big difference because we all got really intentional and we did it together. And so our lives were drastically different. We hiked the 14er. It was this amazing moment. There was a guy from Chicago that had never hiked a mountain beyond a little hill before, and he got to the top, and we celebrated. And so we get to the end of the summer, and we're like, man, we gotta, this was incredible. We got to take this to the whole church. And we had just planted a church earlier that year. So we're like, okay, let's just open this up to everybody. So all of a sudden we have 35, 40 guys that are now a part of this. And again, keep in mind, this is 3 months after divorce for me. So I'm still thinking I'm in no place to lead men, right? I just went through this public thing. I kind of thought that was I'm totally unqualified.
You've got the scarlet D around your neck.
That's what it felt like to me.
Yeah.
But because I was the one who had the idea for the original summer, I became the de facto leader of this kind of whole church group. So then all of a sudden I'm leading a men's ministry, and we got 35, 40 guys that I'm leading. And I'm in this moment where I'm like, man, this is the least qualified I've ever felt, but also the most qualified I've ever felt because I just went through that. And you're most qualified to help the people you once were. And I just said, I'm just going to help men kind of wake up from passivity, wake up from apathy. Let's do life intentionally and let's do life together.
I love that.
And here we are. We just celebrated our 5-year anniversary as a church. I've been leading that men's group ever since. We have 75 guys in it this semester. And it's just crazy. I mean, that just shows me the faithfulness of God, but also just what happens when you truly do life together and intentionally.
I love that. And coming at it out of a place of brokenness and going, I don't know, but I need this. And then God uses that. That's a cool thing.
Absolutely.
So,
yeah.
Hey, listen, real quick, we're going to take a little short break. And Chris, our producer, is going to talk to you about a weekend we have called the With Everything Men's Weekend. You talk about building intentionality in your life. You talk about living with a set of principles that are really steadfast. Chris is going to tell you a little bit about that, and then we're going to come right back.
Hey man, this is producer Chris Mann for the Next Stage podcast for men. Only 27% of men report having a group of close friends, and only 30% report having a private, in-depth conversation with a friend. So is this a big deal? Well, studies show that a lack of social connection raises a man's risk for early death by the equivalent of, and get this is really important, smoking 15 cigarettes a day. Man, it's time to quit the whole lonesome cowboy Marlboro man shtick. Sherpa 5280 has a powerful retreat that we take on the road, and we call it the With Everything Men's Retreat. It's a 3-day weekend experience that helps a man learn to live with passion, purpose, power, and perspective as men created in God's image. And listen up, this is key. Doing so in community of other men just like you. You can bring this powerful retreat experience to your local men's group, church, or even business. Just take 30 seconds and contact Rob Stout today at The Next Stage at Sherpa5280.com for details. That's The Next Stage at Sherpa5280.com. Just write the words "with everything" in the subject line, stick in your contact information in the body of the email, and we'll connect with you. For more information, visit Sherpa5280.com/retreat today. That's Sherpa5280.com/retreat.
So thanks, and I want to let you know we're doing a With Everything Men's Weekend in September, the 12th through the 14th, with Lifegate Church in Denver. If you want to be a part of that, or you are like, man, what is this? Maybe you want to bring a couple guys, like Jonathan was talking about, and just scout this out. Right? We would love to have you. Email me the next stage at Sherpa5280.com, and we will get you info for that. Or if you want to bring this to your men's group, your church would love to do that. So, Jonathan, as we kind of put a focus on this episode, and thanks for being so vulnerable and just sharing your life. I think it's just really cool. Really, really cool. And I love to see what God is doing through you and with you and in you and your next steps and all of that. Just really, really cool. But there are a lot of men out there who don't have what you have, or who in that point chose just the opposite, right? Because it's easy to go, I'm going to go medicate, I'm going to get numb, I'm going to do whatever, okay? So what would you tell men about building intentionality in their lives? What are the first steps they can take to do that?
Yes. Yep. So this is the first habit of intentional living, like we mentioned, extreme clarity. So I believe that intentional living has to start with clarity in terms of, what do you want to be intentional about? We would never set out on a road trip without any sort of destination. That would be really hard to make the right turns, and if you didn't know where you were going. So if you don't know what your life is about, what you want it to be about, what your priorities are, what your values are, what your mission is, it's really hard. But that stuff takes some work. So a lot of us don't actually put in the time and the effort and the, to actually set what that destination is. So that's what I would say right now. When I talk to a lot of guys who feel like they don't have a lot of passion, who feel like they're coasting, usually the first thing that we look at is, do you have a compelling long-term vision for your life?
Purpose.
Do you have purpose? Do you have something that is pulling you forward? You might, and maybe you forgot it, and you just need to kind of reconnect to that and get a little clearer on it. But that's what I would say. You have to start with that. One of my favorite exercises to do is to create a personal mission statement.
Right.
So if you run a business, a lot of times we know you should create some sort of vision statement, mission statement for your business to give it clarity, to know what you're about. Mm-hmm. Have you done that for your life? Do you know what your life is actually what you want that to be about? When you ask me what's important to you, what's your life about, I know right away to inspire and equip men to overcome passivity and build a life of generational significance. When I know that that's what my life is about, then I can live each day trying to do that to the best of my ability and actually setting my intentions to do that. Mm-hmm. So I know that's why I'm building this business. If I have a sit down with a guy one-on-one, how can I inspire and equip this guy to do exactly what I'm saying? So that's what I would say. Start with clarity. And that setting a personal mission statement is one of my favorite activities. We can talk about how to do that if you want to or whatever, but I love starting there, and also your long-term vision, like a 10-year vision, and your values. If you have those three things, then you can actually really strategically set your life in a way where you can be intentionally pursuing those.
Yeah. And it's amazing how many goals guys have for working out or for even their career, but their life. Yeah. Like, that's going to last way before and have a way longer generational significance. Back to that word.
Yes.
If you don't know where you're going, I just had my grandson, believe it or not, was born last Saturday. Yeah. Little Easton Robert Holland.
Congrats.
Okay.
That's amazing.
That I know I don't look old enough to be a grandfather, not even close.
Nope.
But I started thinking about this. Okay, so this guy's born in 2025.
Yeah.
You know, I'm 57. I don't know how many more years I might have one. I don't know. Yeah. I don't know. But the impact generationally to him and growing him and helping develop him. And I've already done that with my kids. Now we're a generation. My dad, this is his great-grandson.
Yeah.
I'm like, are you kidding me? And thinking about the generational significance. Yes. That's cool.
Yep.
That's really cool.
Yeah, and in that word significance, sometimes I feel like I just want to explain that, because sometimes people think, oh, you have to do something huge, or like you have to start some business or grow something really big. Significance to me just means actually intentionally valuing people.
Yeah.
And the way that I like to kind of distinguish these is success is just about you. Significance is about others. I could build a life of success that's all self-focused, but it ends when I end. And if there's nothing left when I end, then I don't feel like that's a life well lived to me. So significance, I want my life to be about impacting other people. And then the generational part comes in where I'm like, I want to build something that lasts beyond me, where you're investing in your kids, who are then investing in their kids, and it goes on and on and on.
Sure.
And I think you can do that by just valuing others with what you have, wherever you are, in whatever you're passionate about, loving others, being others focused, instead of being self-centered. And I think that's why, that's what I mean by significance. I want men to take, the focus off themselves and focus on other people and build something that's going to last for more than just themselves.
Absolutely. I absolutely believe that the degree to which, and think about it, I mean, the age that we live in, even doing podcasting, both of us have a podcast, we're both on Instagram, we're both, whatever, but it's not for the purpose of eyeballs. Yeah. It really is not. I mean, obviously you need to get eyeballs, in order to have an impact. Yeah. You need to have a career in order to make a living, but there's so many people out there who it seems like are just after that and chasing that.
Yeah.
Versus, man, what significant impact, little or small.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm partnering with a guy on a men's event at our church here in a couple of weeks, and I go, hey, listen, dude, I'm in.
Yeah.
And I go, let me explain. I'm in, like, I'll sweep the floors, clean the toilets, make eggs for breakfast, whatever it is. I'm in. How can I help?
Yeah.
Why? Because these men are connected with families. They're connected with businesses. They're connected with neighborhoods. They're connected with their wife, with their girlfriend, their community.
Yeah.
Like, you affect a man's life. And you affect a lot.
Yes, you do.
Significantly.
Yeah.
There's that word again.
Yeah. And I think that's one of the best ways to actually, when we talk about living with intentionality, where in your life can you put more significance in your story?
Yeah.
Where can you be more about other people? I like to think of it this way. We all know when you're taking a photo. So I love to hike. I love to go to amazing, scenic spots and get photos and things. So when I'm on top of a mountain or in this cool spot and I have my camera, when I have it just focused out, I can get amazing photos. So I'm taking all these amazing photos. When I try to get myself in it, like if I'm at the top by myself and I try taking a selfie, so we all know these, I'm trying to get this amazing scenery in the back,
right,
while getting my face in there, and it never turns out great.
Right.
The photo never does it justice, and it's harder to get a good photo of what's going on out there when I'm trying to get my face in it. When I flip the camera and I'm just focused on what's going on out there, I get amazing photos. And so in my life, I kind of remind myself that often. Get out of selfie mode. It's just like a funny little phrase that I say. So even in building a business or about, growing Instagram or your podcast or whatever, when I make it about myself, I start to get really nervous. I start to think, are people going to like me? Is this going to be engaging? Is this going to be funny? Is this going to be successful? And then I start to, when I kind of have that focus on me, I start to get really nervous and I start to just get really self-focused. When I can flip it and just say, I'm here to serve people. I'm here to make this about them. I'm here to impact other people. That feels like me flipping the camera from selfie mode to that, and I can see the whole picture. And the pressure, when you make your life all about you and how you're being perceived and your success, the pressure is all on you. And it's a really hard way to live. When I just flip it and I just say, how can I come in here and serve Rob? How can I help him and his podcast and his mission and what he's doing? I don't feel that much pressure. If I come in here and I'm like, I hope people like me and I hope I say the right things, then I get tense.
I hope I go viral.
Yeah, exactly. So I think that's a great way in your life when you start to just flip it.
Yeah.
It takes the pressure off of you. You're here to serve. There's a quote that says there's no reason to fear when the mission to serve is clear. There's no reason to fear when the mission to serve is clear. That's what I want my life to be about. Service, helping other people, impacting people, others focused versus myself focused. When you do that, it's so much more enjoyable. The pressure's not on me. I'm just here to serve.
I love it, man. I love it. I mean, even taking a look at the four, I'll call them pillars.
Yeah.
Foundational principles. What do you call them?
Habits.
Okay.
Yeah.
So extreme clarity, kingdom focus, consistent action, and daily congruency.
Yeah.
I love that.
Yeah.
Love that. That's our takeaway for today. That a life lived with intentionality is centered around extreme clarity, kingdom focus, consistent action, and daily congruency. I'd like to thank Jonathan. Thank you for being here.
Yeah.
Thank you for making the drive, coming down to the global headquarters of Sherpa. Man, it was a long way, I know, but thank you for that. Hey, listen, I would like to thank you for being part of The Next Stage as well. Thanks for joining us. I'm your host, Rob Stout, and this is episode 31, I believe. They drop every 2 weeks, and so we would love speaking of not being famous, we would love your like, share, subscribe. Here's why. Because we want to spread what we're doing. I want for people to hear what Jonathan just had to say. It's really significant. Also, click the bell on YouTube. Get a reminder of the next episode that comes up, and 5 stars reviews. They just make it go farther faster. But we'd love your feedback too. If there's anything you have to let us know, give us some feedback. Just email me at thenextstage@Sherpa5280. And until next time, would you be a man who walks with intentionality? And we will see you on our next episode.
Thanks for joining us for episode 31 of the Next Stage podcast with Rob Stout. The Next Stage is a production of Sherpa Unlimited Personal Coaching for Men, based in Denver, Colorado. Learn more at sherpaunlimited.com/thenextstage, or visit us on LinkedIn, Facebook, or Instagram. For questions, comments, or feedback on what you'd like to hear covered in future episodes, email us at thenextstage@sherpaunlimited.com. The Next Stage distributes new episodes every 2 weeks on Wednesday mornings. The mission of The Next Stage is to help men who are made in God's image live with passion, purpose, power, and perspective. If you don't have a Bible, just download a free online Bible app called YouVersion for your smartphone. Go to your smartphone's app store and search YOUVersion and select the YouVersion Bible. Thanks again, and we'll see you next time.